Conscious love, lasting intimacy, and becoming the partner you were meant to be. Book 1, The Unconscious Dance. Chapter 1, The Mystery of Attraction. Chapter Summary. We'll discover that romantic attraction isn't random. It follows predictable patterns rooted in childhood experiences. We'll explore how our unconscious mind creates an internal template of the ideal partner, and why we're drawn to people who resemble our earliest caregivers in both positive and negative ways. Understanding this hidden dynamic is the first step toward creating conscious, lasting love. Have you ever wondered why you fell in love with this person and not someone else? On paper, you've met hundreds of people, many of them attractive, successful, kind, yet only a handful ever sparked that deep magnetic pull. And here's the curious thing. If you look at the people you've been seriously attracted to over your lifetime, they tend to share similar traits, including, surprisingly, their negative traits. Maggie and Victor, a couple I worked with, told me a story I still remember. They met in graduate school, sharing a big house with a communal kitchen. Maggie was cooking breakfast one morning when Victor walked in. I had the strangest reaction, she recalled. My legs wanted to carry me to him, but my head was telling me to stay away. The feelings were so strong that I felt faint and had to sit down. Within 2 months, they eloped. 29 years later, they were in my office contemplating divorce, driven apart by the very intensity that had drawn them together. Raina and Mark had a different story. They met through a mutual friend who hesitated to introduce them. He's tall and you're short. He's Protestant and you're Jewish. He's very quiet and you talk all the time. But Raina said none of that mattered. Their courtship was tepid, prolonged, never torrid, yet they built a steady, deep connection that lasted. What accounts for these differences? Why do some people ignite with such intensity while others ease into marriage with level-headed friendship? And why do so many couples seem to have opposite personality traits? The biology of attraction. And why it's not enough. Scientists have offered various explanations. Some biologists say we're driven by evolutionary programming. Men are drawn to signs of youth and health because they signal fertility, while women favor mates with status and resources who can protect and provide. There's some truth here. Just look at the personal ads. Successful 45-year-old man seeks attractive, slim 20-year-old woman. Social psychologists add the exchange theory. We select mates who are roughly our equals. We size up physical appeal, financial status, social rank, personality traits, and when the scores are roughly equivalent, the bidding begins. Another theory, the persona theory, suggests we choose partners who enhance our self-image. What will it do to my sense of self if I'm seen with this person? These theories explain some aspects of attraction, but they leave gaping holes. They can't account for the overwhelming intensity of romantic love, those feelings of ecstasy that make you feel like you've finally come home. They can't explain the devastating pain of a breakup, which feels less like disappointment and more like dying. And they can't explain our remarkable selectivity. Most people have been deeply attracted to only a handful of individuals in their entire lives. The unconscious mind and your inner template. To understand what's really going on, we need to grasp how the unconscious mind operates. Think of the brain as having 3 layers. The innermost primitive layer, what neuroscientists sometimes call the reptilian brain, oversees survival, reproduction, and automatic functions. Wrapped around that is the limbic system, which generates vivid emotions. Together, I'll call these the old brain. The outer layer is the cerebral cortex, the new brain, which handles reasoning, planning, and conscious thought. Your old brain is always active, even when you're not aware of it. But it has some peculiar characteristics. First, it has no sense of linear time. For your old brain, everything that ever happened is still happening now. An abandonment you felt at age 2 is as present today as it was then. Second, it categorizes people very crudely, not as my neighbor, my cousin, or my wife, but simply as someone to nurture, be nurtured by, have sex with, run from, submit to, or attack. Most importantly, your old brain's main concern is survival. It constantly asks, is it safe? And it's trying to answer that question by recreating the environment of your childhood, not out of habit, but because it's attempting to heal old wounds. Here's what this means for love. The part of your brain that directed your search for a mate wasn't your logical, analytical new brain. It was your time, locked, survival, focused old brain. And what it was looking for was someone who matched an unconscious template formed from the composite of everyone who influenced you most deeply in your earliest years. I call this inner template the imago, from the Latin word for image. Your imago is a detailed, unconscious picture of the person you need to find to finally heal the wounds of childhood. It includes the sound of their voice, their characteristic moods, their talents and interests, the way they move, the set of their shoulders when they're angry. And of all the impressions recorded on this template, the ones etched most deeply are the negative traits, because those are the ones that wounded you most. Lynn's story. Let me tell you about Lynn. Her father was a hard-working man who provided well, but was emotionally distant. He rarely showed affection and was often critical. Her mother was warm and devoted, but also insecure and overly protective. Lynn had an older sister, Judith, who was tall, talented, and seemed to succeed at everything. Lynn always felt inferior around her. As Lynn grew up, the traits of these three people, her father's distance and criticism, her mother's devotion and insecurity, her sister's superiority, merged in her unconscious to form a single composite image. When she met Peter at a friend's house, she felt as if she already knew him. He was outgoing and confident, like her father and sister. But he also had a critical nature, like her mother. He kept telling Lynn to lose weight, loosen up, be more playful. Most significantly, he had little compassion for her feelings, just like her father. On a conscious level, Lynn wasn't comparing Peter to her parents. She just found him wonderfully appealing. But her old brain had spotted a perfect imago match. And the more Peter's traits aligned with that unconscious template, especially the negative ones, the more intensely she was drawn to him. This is why I say that the ultimate reason you fell in love isn't that your partner was young, beautiful, or successful. It's that your old brain had them confused with your parents and believed it had finally found the ideal candidate to make up for everything you missed in childhood. The search for wholeness. But there's another layer to this. It's not just about finding a surrogate parent. It's also about reclaiming lost parts of yourself. Think about childhood socialization. To be a good boy or girl, you had to repress certain thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Maybe anger wasn't allowed. Maybe curiosity was punished. Maybe your sensuality was shamed. Maybe you were told you weren't very bright, or that your role was to be quiet and compliant. Over time, you surgically removed parts of yourself from awareness. Not gone, just buried. I call these buried parts the lost self. Now, here's the fascinating twist. You're unconsciously drawn to partners who embody those very traits you had to give up. If you repressed your anger, you'll be attracted to someone who's emotionally expressive. If you disowned your intelligence, you'll seek out a brilliant partner. If you lost touch with your playfulness, you'll fall for someone spontaneous and fun. By merging with them, you get to experience those qualities vicariously. It feels like becoming whole. So your imago serves a dual purpose. It guides you towards someone who both resembles your caretakers, to heal old wounds, and compensates for your own repressed parts, to recover your lost wholeness. That's a lot of unconscious baggage to bring to a first date. The recognition phenomenon. This explains why lovers so often say, "I feel like I've known you my whole life." They're not being poetic. They're reporting a genuine unconscious experience. Their old brain has recognized the template. The image of the partner has merged with the image of the caretakers, and suddenly they're back in that primal dependent state. Only this time, they believe, all their needs will finally be met. This also explains why some people fall in love at first glance, while others ease in gradually. If a partner matches many key imago traits, especially the negative ones, the attraction will be immediate and intense. If the match is weaker, the attraction will be milder. And here's a crucial point. The couples with weaker imago matches tend to have less passionate, but also less troubled relationships. The couples with strong matches experience the most intoxicating love and the most painful power struggles. What this means for your relationship. Understanding the imago isn't just interesting psychology, it's the foundation for everything that follows. If you can grasp that your choice of partner wasn't random, that it was driven by an unconscious agenda to heal and become whole. Then you can stop asking, "Did I marry the wrong person?" and start asking, "What is this relationship trying to teach me? What wounds am I being invited to heal?" Your partner didn't come into your life to make you happy, at least not in the way you thought. They came to make you conscious, and that journey begins by understanding exactly what you're working with, the invisible blueprint that has guided your heart since childhood. Key takeaway: you didn't fall in love by accident. Your unconscious mind selected your partner because they match an inner template formed from your earliest relationships. And this seemingly bad match is actually a profound opportunity for healing. Reflection prompt: think about the 3 people who influenced you most in childhood. List their positive and negative traits. Now compare those traits to your partner or most significant ex. What similarities do you notice? Which negative traits seem to match most closely? Chapter 2: Childhood Wounds and the Making of a Love Blueprint. Chapter Summary: every child experiences moments when needs go unmet. These experiences create invisible wounds that shape our adult personalities and drive our most intimate relationships. We'll explore how these wounds form, the survival strategies we develop, and why the very adaptations that protected us as children become the barriers to intimacy in adulthood. No parents, no matter how devoted, can respond perfectly to all of a child's changing needs. Freud called us insatiable beings, and he was right. From the moment we're born, we're complex, dependent creatures with a never-ending cycle of needs, and from the very beginning, some of those needs go unmet. To understand the depth of this, let's go back to the beginning. The original wholeness. Before birth, a fetus lives in a state of perfect union. Its needs are met instantly and automatically through the mother's body. It has no awareness of boundaries, no sense of a separate self. There's a widely held belief, expressed by mystics and theologians across cultures, that this fetal state represents an Edenic experience of oneness with the universe. Birth shatters that union. But for the first few months, a baby still makes little distinction between itself and the world. When all physical needs are met, a newborn often displays what looks like profound contentment. They are, in a sense, still whole. But that wholeness gradually fades as the baby begins to discover that its mother, the gentle giant who holds and feeds and comforts, is not always there. This is the beginning of a lifelong tension, the drive to be connected versus the drive to be a distinct self. The perilous journey. Think about the ceaseless demands of an infant. They wake up hungry, cry to be fed. Then they're wet and cry to be changed. Then they want to be held, a physical craving as powerful as hunger. Then they're hungry again. A bubble of gas forms, and they cry out in anguish. They signal distress the only way they know how, with an undifferentiated cry. If the caretakers figure out what's wrong and respond, the baby experiences momentary satisfaction. But if they can't figure it out, or if they withhold attention, perhaps for fear of spoiling the baby, the child experiences a primitive anxiety. The world is not safe. Since a baby has no capacity for delayed gratification, getting the outside world to respond instantly feels like a matter of life and death. You and I have no conscious recollection of those first months, but our old brains are still trapped in that infantile perspective. We may be adults, capable of feeding and clothing ourselves, but a hidden part of us still expects the world to respond instantly to our unspoken needs. When our partners are hostile or merely unhelpful, that silent alarm deep in our brains fills us with the fear of death. The development of self. Around 18 months, a child enters the stage of autonomy and independence. They have a growing sense of where they end and others begin. They're ready to explore the world beyond their primary caretaker. If a toddler could speak, they'd say, "I'm ready to spend some time off your lap now. I'm a little insecure about leaving you, so I'll be back in a few minutes to make sure you haven't disappeared." Ideally, the parent smiles and says, "Bye, sweetie. Have a good time. I'll be right here when you need me." When the toddler returns, suddenly aware of how dependent they really are, the parent says, "Hi, did you have fun? Come sit in my lap for a minute." The child learns that the world is safe to explore, and that connection is always available. But many children are frustrated at this stage. Some have a caretaker who thwarts their independence. The mother or father feels insecure when the child is out of sight. When a little girl wanders into the next room, her anxious mother might call out, "Don't go in there. You might get hurt." The child dutifully comes back, but inside she's afraid. Her drive for autonomy is being denied. Without knowing it, this child grows up to become what I call an isolator, someone who unconsciously pushes others away, who needs a lot of space, who doesn't want to be pinned down. Underneath the cool exterior is a 2-year-old who wasn't allowed to satisfy her natural need for independence. Other children have the opposite experience. When they come running to a parent for comfort, they're pushed away. "Go away. I'm busy. Stop clinging to me." These children grow up feeling emotionally abandoned. They become fusers, people with an insatiable need for closeness. They want to do things together all the time. If their partner fails to show up when expected, they feel abandoned. The thought of divorce fills them with terror. Underneath the clinging is a young child who needed more time on a parent's lap. Here's the cosmic joke. Fusers and isolators tend to marry each other. The person who craves closeness is drawn to someone who values independence, and vice versa, setting up an infuriating push-pull dynamic that leaves neither partner satisfied, the lost self and the false self. As you journey through childhood, your caretakers respond to your changing needs with varying degrees of success. But no matter how good they were, you grew up knowing the anguish of unmet needs. And in addition to these unmet needs, you experienced another, subtler kind of wounding: socialization. To be a member of society, you had to learn which thoughts, feelings, and behaviors were acceptable and which weren't. This is universal. Every culture places limits on the individual. Freud put it bluntly: the desire for a powerful and uninhibited ego may seem to us intelligible, but it is in the profoundest sense antagonistic to civilization. Your parents, however well-intentioned, delivered a chilling message. There were certain thoughts and feelings you couldn't have, certain natural behaviors you had to extinguish, certain talents you had to deny. In thousands of ways, they told you they approved of only a part of you. Take Sarah, a client of mine. From an early age, her mother told her she wasn't very intelligent. "You're not as smart as your older brother. You'd better marry a smart man because you're going to need a lot of help." The culture of the 1950s reinforced this. Little girls were sweet, pretty, compliant, not bright. When Sarah was 15, a teacher recognized her natural abilities and encouraged her. She brought home a report card of mostly A's. Her mother's response: "How on earth did that happen? I bet you can't do that again." And Sarah couldn't, because she finally gave in and put to sleep the part of her brain that thought calmly and rationally. The tragedy wasn't just that Sarah lost her ability to reason. It was that she acquired the unconscious belief that thinking was dangerous. To think clearly would be to defy her mother, to contradict her mother's definition of her. She couldn't risk alienating her mother because she was dependent on her for survival. Yet she couldn't fully disown her intelligence either. So when she married, she chose a man who was exceptionally bright, an unconscious attempt to reclaim that lost part of herself by proxy. Like Sarah, we all have parts of ourselves we've hidden from consciousness. This is the lost self. Whenever you hear yourself say, "I can't think, I can't feel, I'm not creative, I can't dance," you're identifying natural abilities you've surgically removed from awareness. They're not gone, but they're not part of your conscious identity. To fill the void left by these repressed parts, we create a false self, a character structure that camouflages what we've hidden and protects us from further injury. A child raised by a distant, sexually repressive mother might become a tough guy who doesn't need that mushy stuff. Another might become a hoarder, clinging to every bit of love and material goods. Another might exaggerate their problems in hopes someone will come to their rescue. Whatever form it takes, the false self serves to minimize the pain of losing part of our original wholeness. But here's the next wound. This adaptive character eventually gets criticized. Others see the neurotic side, the coldness, neediness, stinginess, without seeing the wound it's protecting. So now a second layer forms, the disowned self, those negative traits of the false self that are too painful to acknowledge. We deny them, project them onto others, and say with great energy, "I am not self-centered." you're self-centered. The impossible burden. Imagine carrying all of this into adulthood, a lost self you don't know is missing, a false self you think is you, and a disowned self you're constantly projecting onto others. You're walking around with an inner fragmentation you're not even aware of. And deep inside there's a yearning, a spiritual yearning for completion, that you believe can only be satisfied by finding that one perfect person. Plato captured this in his allegory. Humans were once androgynous beings, whole and powerful. The gods, threatened by their strength, split them in two. Now each half spends its life searching frantically for the other, believing that reunion will restore wholeness. This myth lives in our unconscious, and it sends us into relationships with an impossible expectation that our partner will magically restore what was lost. When they fail, as they must, we feel betrayed, angry, and hopeless. But here's the transformative insight. That yearning for wholeness isn't a curse. It's a compass. And your partner, the one who matches your imago so perfectly, isn't the answer to your prayers, but the question you've been avoiding your whole life. They are the mirror showing you exactly where you need to heal. Key takeaway. Your childhood wounds aren't just painful memories. They're the invisible architects of your adult personality and your most intimate relationships. Understanding them is the first step toward breaking free from patterns you didn't even know were running your life. Reflection prompt. What parts of yourself did you have to hide or repress in childhood? Think about emotions, talents, desires, or personality traits that weren't welcomed. How might these lost parts be showing up in your choice of partners or your relationship struggles? Chapter 3. Romantic Love and the Power Struggle. Chapter Summary. Romantic love feels transcendent, but it's built on an unconscious illusion that our partner will finally give us what we never got in childhood. When that illusion inevitably shatters, we enter the power struggle, a painful but predictable stage where couples blame each other for their unhappiness. Understanding this progression is essential to moving beyond it, the ecstasy of romantic love. When couples describe those first idyllic days to me, they describe a world transformed. Colors were brighter, food tasted better, people seemed friendlier, everything shimmered with a pristine newness. But the biggest change was in how they felt about themselves. Suddenly they had more energy, a healthier outlook. They felt wittier, more playful, more optimistic. They looked in the mirror and felt a new fondness for the face looking back. Some people felt so good that they were able to give up substitute forms of gratification, sweets, drugs, compulsive habits. For a while, just being in love was enough. What causes this rush? Psychopharmacologists have found that lovers are literally high on drugs, natural hormones and chemicals that flood their bodies with well-being. During the attraction phase, the brain releases dopamine and norepinephrine, contributing to a rosy outlook, rapid pulse, increased energy, and heightened perception. The brain also increases production of endorphins and enkephalins, natural narcotics that enhance security and comfort. And serotonin levels may shift in ways that create the mystical experience of oneness. But as fascinating as this biology is, scientists can't explain what triggers the release of these chemicals or what causes them to diminish. For that, we need psychology, specifically the understanding that romantic love is a creation of the unconscious mind. The 4 universal love statements. If you listen to love songs, read romantic poetry, or simply eavesdrop on couples in the early stages, you'll notice that almost everything they say to each other reduces to 4 basic sentences. These statements offer a rare glimpse into the unconscious realm of romantic love. The first sentence occurs early. I know we've just met, but somehow I feel as though I already know you. This isn't a line. It's the phenomenon of recognition. Their old brain has spotted the imago match. The second comes a bit later. Even though we've only been seeing each other a short time, I can't remember when I didn't know you. This is the phenomenon of timelessness. To the unconscious, being in love is very much like being an infant in your mother's arms. There's the same illusion of safety, the same total absorption. The third emerges as the relationship ripens. When I'm with you, I no longer feel alone. I feel whole, complete. One client put it this way. Before I knew her, it was like I'd been wandering around in a big house with empty rooms. When we met, it was like opening a door and finding someone home. This is the phenomenon of reunification. And finally, the fourth declaration, I love you so much I can't live without you. This is the phenomenon of necessity. On an unconscious level, this reveals the fear that if the lovers part, they'll lose their rediscovered sense of wholeness. They'd be fractured, half-whole creatures again. The illusion of healing during this stage, lovers seem to divine exactly what each other needs. If one needs nurturing, the other gladly plays mommy or daddy. If one wants freedom, the other grants independence. They shower each other with spontaneous acts of caring that seem to erase earlier childhood deprivations. It's like suddenly becoming the favored child in an idealized family. But to maintain this illusion, they engage in unconscious play acting. They try to appear more emotionally healthy than they really are. Louise, a client, described the lengths she went to. Before her future husband came to dinner, she arranged for her son to stay with a friend, thoroughly cleaned the house, planned the menu around the only two things she could cook really well, and arranged fresh flowers in every room. When he arrived, dinner was ready, her makeup was fresh, and classical music played softly. He, in turn, was his most charming, helpful self, insisting on washing dishes and fixing the broken porch light. This degree of make-believe is common. In some cases, it's more extreme. Jessica had a history of involvement with unreliable men. When she met Brad, he seemed totally devoted. She told him all about her previous difficulties. He was sympathetic, assuring her he'd never leave. If anyone leaves, it will be you, he said. He seemed for all the world like a stable, trustworthy mate. 6 months later, she came home to find a note pinned to the door. He'd taken a higher, paying job in another town and couldn't turn it down. Later she learned he'd moved 6 times in 15 years and been married 3 times. Sensing her need for security, he had unconsciously identified with her vision of the ideal man, a process called projective identification. He couldn't keep up the charade. Even after Brad left, Jessica fabricated an illusion that he was planning to send for her. She stayed by the phone, waited anxiously for a letter. She never heard from him again. And I'm glad I didn't, she told me, because I would have taken him back no matter what he had done. The lamp and the knife. The myth of Psyche and Eros captures the illusory nature of romantic love beautifully. Psyche, a beautiful mortal, becomes the bride of Eros, the god of love. But Eros doesn't want her to know he's a god, so he comes to her only in darkness. Psyche's envious sisters plant the suspicion that her lover might be a monster. That night she hides a lamp and a knife under the bed. When Eros falls asleep, she lights the lamp and sees that he's a magnificent god. But a drop of hot oil spills on his shoulder, waking him. Furious at being discovered, he flies away, vowing to leave her forever. The palace vanishes and Psyche is back on the cold, lonely mountain. Like Psyche, when we first light our lamps and see our lovers clearly, we discover they're not gods at all. They're imperfect humans, full of warts and blemishes, all those negative traits we steadfastly refuse to see. The descent into power struggle. When does romantic love end and the power struggle begin? For most couples, there's a noticeable shift about the time they make a definite commitment. Once they say, let's get married, or let's move in together, the pleasing dance of courtship draws to a close. Now they want not just the expectation of need fulfillment, but the reality. Suddenly it's not enough that their partner be affectionate, clever, and attractive. Now they must satisfy a whole hierarchy of expectations, some conscious, most hidden from awareness. On the conscious level, there are role expectations. Who does the housework? Who cooks? Who manages the money? How Sundays should be spent? But far beneath these surface issues lies the primary unconscious expectation, that their partner will love them the way their parents never did. Their partner will satisfy unmet childhood needs, complement lost self parts, nurture them consistently, and be eternally available. The same expectations fueled the excitement of romantic love, but now there's less desire to reciprocate. After all, people don't get married to make their partner happy, they get married to be happy themselves. And if the partner fails to deliver, they feel cheated. Anger, hurt, and fear begin to surface. What they don't recognize, what almost no one recognizes, is that the power struggle is actually the beginning of the healing process. The unconscious mind, having found an imago match, is now trying to bring those old wounds to the surface where they can finally be addressed. The frustrations you feel aren't a sign that something's gone wrong. They're evidence that the therapy has begun. The 3 stages of power struggle. The power struggle typically unfolds in 3 stages. First comes the stage of denial. Even though you're noticing differences and annoyances, you try to minimize them. You cling to the romantic illusion, telling yourself things will get better once the stress passes or your partner comes to their senses. Next comes the stage of anger and blame. When denial stops working, frustration erupts. You start criticizing, complaining, trying to change your partner. You think, if only you would be different, I could be happy. This is the stage where most couples enter therapy, wanting the therapist to fix their partner. Finally, for those who don't find a way through, comes despair. At this point, couples no longer have any hope of finding happiness within the relationship. About half file for divorce. Most of those who stay together create what's called a parallel marriage, finding all their happiness outside the relationship. Only a small percentage, perhaps as few as 5%, find a way to resolve the power struggle and go on to create a deeply satisfying relationship. The hidden agenda. Here's something crucial. The power struggle and romantic love aren't as different as they appear. On the surface, they seem worlds apart. Delight has turned to hatred, goodwill to battle. But the underlying themes remain exactly the same. Both partners are still searching for a way to regain their original wholeness. Both still believe their partner has the power to make them healthy and whole. The only difference is that now the partner is perceived as withholding love rather than offering it. This is why simply learning to communicate more nicely doesn't solve the problem. The conflict isn't really about the dishes or the money or the in-laws. It's about the unconscious belief that your partner is supposed to heal you and the rage, fear and grief that arise when they don't. What's the way out? Not resignation. I guess this is as good as it gets. Not distraction, throwing yourself into work or hobbies or affairs. The way out is becoming conscious, understanding what's really driving the conflict and learning how to work with those deeper needs rather than against them. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore exactly how to do this. But for now, simply recognizing the pattern is a massive step forward. You're not crazy. Your partner isn't evil. You're both just wounded people trying to heal. And ironically, you chose each other because your wounds fit together like puzzle pieces. Key takeaway. Romantic love and the power struggle are 2 sides of the same unconscious coin. Both are driven by the hidden expectation that your partner will heal your childhood wounds. The way out isn't finding a new partner or resigning yourself to misery. It's making the unconscious conscious and learning to heal together. Reflection prompt. Can you identify the moment when your relationship shifted from romantic love to power struggle? What was the first issue that revealed your partner wasn't the perfect person you thought? How did you react? With anger, withdrawal, attempts to change them? Chapter 4. The Making of a Peacemaker. How Childhood Shapes the Nice Guy and the People. Please a chapter summary. Many people, especially men, grow up believing that to be loved and safe, they must hide their true selves and become what others want them to be. This chapter explores the origins of the nice guy syndrome, how it manifests in adult relationships, and why it inevitably leads to resentment, dishonesty, and unfulfilling partnerships. There's a particular kind of man, and increasingly women too, who walks into my office with a familiar story. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He prides himself on being giving, generous, and easygoing. He avoids conflict at all costs. He believes that if he's good enough, does everything right, and never causes a moment's trouble, he'll be loved, get his needs met, and have a smooth life. And he's miserable. Jason, a chiropractor in his mid-30s, was a perfect example. I'm a nice guy, he told me in our first session. I'm one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Then he unfolded a list of grievances against his wife. I can never do it right. No matter how hard I try, she always finds something wrong. I don't deserve to be treated this way. I try to be a good husband and father, but it's never good enough. He described a typical morning. He got the baby up, fed her breakfast, gave her a bath, had her all ready to go. Then his wife walked in with that look and asked why he dressed the baby in that particular outfit. After everything I did, it was still wrong. Then there was the sex thing. We only messed around a few times before we got married because we're both Christians. Sex is real important to me, but Heather just isn't interested. After all I do for her, you'd think she'd be willing to give me the one thing I really want. Jason is what I call a nice guy. Not because he's genuinely nice, though he certainly appears that way, but because he operates from a particular survival strategy. If I am good, giving, and caring, I will in return be happy, loved, and fulfilled. It's a myth, and it doesn't work. The origins of the nice guy strategy. Why would a person try to eliminate or hide certain things about himself and become something different? Only one answer makes sense. Because it didn't feel safe or acceptable to be just who he was. During their formative years, all nice guys received messages from their families and the world around them that they were not okay just as they were. These messages came in many forms: a critical parent, an absent father, a needy mother who used her son as an emotional partner, a rigid religious upbringing that branded normal desires as sinful. The most impressionable time in a person's life is birth to about 5 years. During this period, 2 factors combine powerfully. First, every child's greatest fear is abandonment, which to a helpless infant means death. Second, children are ego-centered. They believe they are the cause of everything that happens to them. So when a child experiences abandonment, hunger not fed, cries not answered, loneliness not comforted, a parent's anger or neglect, he always concludes that he is the cause. He's too naive to understand that his caretakers might be overwhelmed, distracted, or wounded themselves. Instead, he thinks, there must be something wrong with me. This creates what psychologists call toxic shame, a deeply held core belief that one is inherently bad, defective, or unlovable. It's not just I did something bad, it's I am bad. To cope with this terrifying belief, children develop survival mechanisms. They try to manage the emotional distress of abandonment, prevent similar experiences from recurring, and hide their perceived badness from themselves and others. For many boys, the survival strategy is become what others want you to be. The 2 kinds of nice guys. Nice guys generally manifest in one of 2 forms. The I'm so bad nice guy is convinced everyone can see his badness. He can give concrete examples of bad behavior from childhood onward: breaking windows, running afoul of the law, drinking, carousing. He believes his only hope is to mask his inherent badness, though he never really believes anyone will buy it. The I'm so good nice guy handles his toxic shame by repressing his core belief about his worthlessness. He believes he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He was never a moment's problem as a child. He follows all the rules to a T. He's tucked his core belief about his not okayness into an airtight compartment deep in his unconscious. Both types operate from the same paradigm. I am not okay just as I am, and therefore I must hide my flaws and become what others want me to be. The not-so-nice truth. Here's the irony. Nice guys are often anything but nice. Consider some of their hidden traits. They're dishonest, they hide mistakes, avoid conflict, say what they think people want to hear, and repress their feelings. The nice guy motto is, if at first you don't succeed, hide the evidence. They're secretive. Since they're so driven to seek approval, they'll hide anything they believe might upset anyone. They're manipulative. Because they can't ask directly for what they want, they resort to indirect tactics. They're controlling. Keeping the world smooth requires constant attempts to control people and circumstances. They give to get. Their generosity has unconscious strings attached. They want appreciation, reciprocation, or for someone to stop being angry at them. They're passive, aggressive. Their frustration leaks out in indirect ways. Being unavailable, forgetting, being late, not following through, repeating the same annoying behaviors despite promises to stop. They're full of rage. A lifetime of frustration and resentment creates a pressure cooker of repressed rage that eventually erupts at the most unexpected moments. They struggle with sex. Almost every nice guy I've met has some significant sexual issue, dissatisfaction, dysfunction, or compulsive hidden behavior. The social context. The prevalence of nice guys in recent generations isn't just about individual family dynamics. Major social changes over the last half century created a perfect storm. Boys were separated from fathers as the economy shifted from agriculture to industry. In an agrarian society, sons worked alongside fathers and learned what it meant to be male. In the post-war urban migration, fathers disappeared into offices and factories. Divorce rates tripled between 1940 and 1970. Boys were left to be raised by mothers and a female-dominated educational system. Meanwhile, radical feminism projected angry generalizations about men. Some voices claimed men were the cause of all problems, or were simply unnecessary. For boys already conditioned to seek female approval, these messages drove them further into trying to become what they believed women wanted. Robert Bly called these men soft males, lovely, valuable people with a gentle attitude toward life, but lacking energy and vitality. Camille Paglia noted how strong women often end up with nice, malleable boy men, who become another son in the household. Whatever we call them, these men share a common script. They've disconnected from their own masculine energy, become dependent on female approval, and sacrificed their authentic selves in pursuit of a love that never quite arrives. The paradigm that doesn't work. The nice guy's entire operating system is built on a flawed premise. If I hide my flaws and become what I think others want me to be, then I will be loved, get my needs met, and have a problem-free life. Even when this paradigm consistently fails, nice guys only see one alternative: try harder. They're notoriously slow learners and amazingly quick forgetters when their belief system is challenged. In the next chapter, we'll explore the concrete steps for breaking free. But the first step, the step you can take right now, is simply recognizing the pattern. If you see yourself in this description, you're not broken. You're just operating from an outdated survival manual that needs to be updated. Key takeaway: the nice guy strategy, hiding your true self and becoming what you think others want, may have protected you as a child, but in adulthood it guarantees frustration, resentment, and unfulfilling relationships. The path forward begins with recognizing that your core belief about being not okay is simply not true. Reflection prompt. Think about your own behavior. Do you often say what you think others want to hear, rather than what you truly feel? Do you go out of your way to avoid conflict? Do you feel resentful that you give more than you receive? Write down specific examples from the past week. Book 2, The Foundations of Friendship. Chapter 5, Love Maps, The Art of Knowing Your Partner. Chapter Summary. Happy couples know each other deeply. They maintain detailed love maps of each other's inner worlds, hopes, fears, dreams, stresses, and daily realities. This chapter explores why this knowledge matters, how to build it, and specific exercises to deepen your understanding of your partner. Rory was a brilliant pediatrician who ran a neonatal intensive care unit. Everyone at the hospital loved him. He was warm, charming, and dedicated. He was also a workaholic who slept at the hospital 20 nights a month. He didn't know the names of his children's friends. He didn't know the family dog's name. When asked where the back door of his house was, he turned to his wife. His wife Lisa was understandably upset. She felt emotionally disconnected from him. She tried to make small gestures to show she cared, but he didn't notice. From her perspective, he simply didn't value her or their marriage. Here was an intellectually gifted man who had become so caught up in his work that his brain had no room left for the basics of his wife's world. And while Rory's ignorance was extreme, many couples fall into a similar pattern of inattention to the details of each other's lives. In contrast, emotionally intelligent couples are intimately familiar with each other's world. I call this having a richly detailed love map, the part of your brain where you store all the relevant information about your partner's life. These couples have made plenty of cognitive room for their marriage. They remember the major events in each other's history, and they keep updating their information as their spouse's world changes. When she orders him a salad, she knows to ask for dressing on the side. If she works late, he'll record her favorite show because he knows which one it is. He knows how she's feeling about her boss and exactly how to get to her office. He knows that religion is important to her, but that deep down she has doubts. She knows he fears being too much like his father. They know each other's life goals, worries, and hopes. This knowledge isn't just romantic, it's practical armor against the storms of life. When researchers studied couples transitioning to parenthood, they found that 67% experienced a dramatic drop in marital satisfaction, but the remaining 33% didn't, and about half of those saw their marriages improve. The difference? The thriving couples had detailed love maps from the beginning. Because they were already in the habit of staying deeply connected, the arrival of a baby didn't throw them off course. Love Maps Questionnaire. To assess the quality of your own love map, answer these questions honestly. Do you know your partner's best friends? Can you name the people who have been irritating your partner lately? Do you know your partner's life dreams? Are you familiar with their religious or spiritual beliefs? Can you list the relatives they like least? Do you know their favorite music, movies, books? Do you know the 3 most special times in their life? The most stressful thing that happened to them as a child? Their major current worries? If you scored low on this, don't panic. Love maps can be built. In fact, one of the most enjoyable ways to strengthen your marriage is to play a simple game that feels like a date rather than homework. The Love Map game. Together, randomly pick 20 numbers between 1 and 60. Match each number to a question from the list below. Ask your partner the question. If they answer correctly, they get the points indicated. You get 1 point for asking a good question. If they're wrong, neither of you scores. Here are some sample questions. 1. Name my 2 closest friends. 2 points. 2. What stress am I facing right now? 4 points. What is my fondest unrealized dream? 5 points. 4. What is one of my greatest fears? 3 points. 5. What makes me feel most competent? 4.6. What personal improvements do I want to make? 7. What was my most embarrassing moment? Play this game regularly, in the car, over dinner, on lazy Sunday mornings. The more you play, the more you'll learn. Going deeper, the Who Am I exercise. Beyond the everyday details, truly intimate love maps include the deeper landscape of your partner's inner world. This requires time and privacy. Set aside uninterrupted stretches to explore these questions together. My triumphs and strivings. What has happened in your life that you're particularly proud of? Include times when you came through trials better off, small events that still matter to you, challenges you met. How have these successes shaped your life, your self, image, your goals? My injuries and healings. What difficult events or periods have you gone through? Include losses, disappointments, despair, loneliness, traumas. How did you survive? What are their lasting effects? How did you heal and protect yourself? My emotional world. How did your family express anger, sadness, fear, affection? What emotional problems did your family cope with? What's your personal philosophy about expressing feelings? Are any emotions difficult for you? My mission and legacy. Imagine you're standing at your own tombstone. What would you like it to say? Write your own obituary. What is the purpose of your life? What legacy would you like to leave? Who I want to become. Describe the person you're trying to become. What demons have you had to fight? What would you most like to change about yourself? What have you denied yourself? When you share these answers with your partner, don't judge, interpret, or try to fix. Just listen. Mirror back what you hear. So what I'm hearing is that you felt invisible in your family, and that's why recognition at work means so much to you. Did I get that right? This kind of deep knowledge is the bedrock of lasting love. It's not something you do once and check off a list. It's an ongoing process of curiosity and discovery, because your partner, like you, is constantly growing, changing, and becoming. Key takeaway: knowing your partner deeply, their inner world, their history, their dreams and wounds, isn't just romantic. It's the foundation that will hold your relationship steady through every storm life throws at you. Reflection prompt: what's one thing about your partner's inner world that you've never asked about but would like to know? Plan a time this week to ask them, and really listen. Chapter 6: Fondness, Admiration, and the Antidote to Contempt. Chapter Summary. The single most powerful predictor of whether a marriage will survive is the presence or absence of contempt. Its antidote is a well-maintained fondness and admiration system, the habit of actively appreciating your partner's positive qualities. This chapter shows you how to revive that system when it's on life support. Remember Dr. Rory, who didn't know his family dog's name? One Christmas, his wife Lisa packed a picnic and brought the kids to the hospital where he was working. As they ate together in the waiting room, Rory turned on her with an angry face. "Why did you do this? It is really embarrassing. None of the other doctors' wives would do this." Just then a resident called. Rory picked up the receiver and his face softened. His voice became warm, helpful, friendly. When he hung up, he turned back to Lisa, his face full of anger again. Something snapped inside Lisa. She had had it. Her husband was clearly capable of kindness, just not toward her. Soon afterward, they decided to try marital counseling. Early sessions went nowhere, but then something shifted. The therapist asked about their early years together. As Rory began to recall their first date, his face lit up. He explained that Lisa came from a traditional Armenian home, very sheltered. He knew that winning her and her family over would take a long time, but he was willing to hang in there. "I think she was very nervous," Rory recalled. "I had some background about why she was nervous, some cultural things she was trying to live with. Because of this, I knew this was going to take a long, long time. So I wasn't nervous at all. I figured this was stage 1 of a 5-year marathon." Lisa beamed. "You mean you had a 5-year plan on our first date?" They held hands as they talked. Rory had never before recounted his campaign to win her heart. In that moment, beneath years of mutual antagonism, the therapist glimpsed something crucial, a still, functioning fondness and admiration system. Despite everything, Rory and Lisa each retained some fundamental sense that the other was worthy of being respected and even liked. If that spark still exists, a marriage is salvageable. If it's gone, if the couple can recall nothing positive about their early days, if they've rewritten their entire history in negative terms, the prognosis is grim. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Before we explore how to nurture fondness, let's understand what happens when it dies. Researchers have identified 4 specific patterns that predict divorce with terrifying accuracy. They call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Horseman 1. Criticism. A complaint addresses a specific behavior. "I'm upset that you didn't take out the trash." Criticism adds a global attack on character. "You're so lazy and thoughtless. You never do anything around here." The difference is the difference between "I'm angry about this thing you did" and "there's something wrong with you." Horseman 2. Contempt. This is the worst of the 4. It's criticism elevated by disgust, sarcasm, sneering, eye-rolling, mocking, name-calling. Contempt conveys that you look down on your partner. It's virtually impossible to resolve a problem when your partner feels your disgust. Research has even found that couples who are contemptuous of each other are more likely to suffer from infectious illnesses. Contempt is poison. Horseman 3. Defensiveness. When we feel attacked, we defend ourselves. "It's not my fault. You're the one who always..." But defensiveness doesn't resolve anything. It escalates the conflict because it's really just a way of blaming your partner. Horseman 4. Stonewalling. Eventually, one partner tunes out completely. They stop responding, look away, offer nothing. They've built a stone wall. This usually happens after the other 3 horsemen have been galloping around for a while. In 85% of marriages, the stonewaller is the husband. Not because men are inherently worse, but because male cardiovascular systems are more reactive to stress and slower to recover. Men get flooded more easily, so they withdraw to protect themselves. These 4 horsemen operate like a relay race, handing off to each other until the relationship collapses. But here's the key. Their presence doesn't have to mean divorce. Happy couples sometimes display them too. What matters is whether the couple can repair the damage, and that repair is only possible if there's a reservoir of fondness and admiration to draw from. Rebuilding the fondness system. The simplest way to revive fondness and admiration is to deliberately practice thinking and talking about what you appreciate in your partner. It sounds almost too simple, but it works. Start with this. From a list of positive characteristics: loving, intelligent, thoughtful, loyal, brave, sexy, creative, funny, supportive, playful, circle 3 that describe your partner. For each one, think of a specific incident that illustrates this trait. Maybe thoughtful reminds you of the time they picked up your favorite tea without being asked. Maybe brave recalls how they handled a difficult conversation at work. Now share what you wrote. Tell your partner the traits you chose and the memories they triggered. This exercise, done in workshops around the world, transforms the atmosphere in minutes. The room fills with warm smiles. Couples who began stiff and awkward suddenly relax. Something lost begins to be regained. The history of your marriage. Another powerful tool is to revisit your shared history. When couples narrate the story of their relationship, researchers can predict their future with 94% accuracy. Those who recall the positive, who describe their early days with warmth, detail, and affectionate humor, tend to stay happy. Those who remember only the struggles, or who can hardly remember anything at all, are in trouble. Set aside a few hours to discuss these questions together. How did you meet? What stood out about your partner? What do you remember most about your early dating? How did you decide to marry? What was your wedding like? Your honeymoon? Your first year together? What were the really happy times in your marriage? The really hard times? How did you get through them? Why have you stayed together? What do you think makes some marriages work while others fail? How do your parents' marriages compare to your own? This isn't just nostalgia. By deliberately recalling your love story, you're reconnecting with the feelings and hopes that brought you together. You're reminding yourself and your partner why this person was worth a 5-year marathon. The 7-week course in fondness. For couples whose positivity has dimmed significantly, a structured approach can help. For 7 weeks, each day brings a positive thought to hold in mind and a simple task to complete. Monday of week 1, I am genuinely fond of my partner. Task: list one characteristic you find endearing. Tuesday, I can easily speak of the good times in our marriage. Task: pick one good time and write a sentence about it. Wednesday, I can easily remember romantic special times. Task: pick one and think about it. Thursday, I am physically attracted to my partner. Task: think of one physical attribute you like, and so on, through 7 weeks of deliberate focus on the positive. By the end, most people find their perspective on their partner and their marriage has brightened considerably. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about restoring balance. Every relationship has irritations and disappointments. The question is whether they're swimming in a sea of positive regard or drowning in negativity. Research shows that it takes 5 positive interactions to counteract the impact of one negative one. That's a lot of repair work if your ratio is out of balance. Better to flood the system with positive regard in the first place. Key takeaway: contempt kills love, and its antidote is deliberate, consistent appreciation. If you want your relationship to survive, you must actively cultivate fondness and admiration. Not just feel it, but express it regularly through words and actions. Reflection prompt: what are 3 specific things you genuinely appreciate about your partner that you haven't told them lately? Tell them today. Chapter 7, Turning Toward, the Currency of Connection. Chapter summary: love isn't sustained by grand gestures, but by countless small moments of turning toward each other rather than away. This chapter explores how bids for connection work, why they matter, and how to build your emotional bank account by responding positively to your partner's everyday attempts to connect. Here's a scene from the Love Lab. It won't win any Oscars. A husband looks out the picture window and says, "Wow, look at that boat." His wife peers over her magazine and replies, "Yeah, it looks like that big schooner we saw last summer, remember?" The husband grunts. Boring, right? Yet I can tell you with confidence that this couple will stay happily married. What just happened in that brief exchange was something profound. The husband made a bid for his wife's attention, and she turned toward him. She engaged. In couples who go on to divorce or live together unhappily, such small moments of connection are rare. The wife doesn't even look up from her magazine. And if she does, the husband doesn't acknowledge what she says. Hollywood has distorted our notions of romance. We think passion is sustained by dramatic gestures, the surprise trip to Paris, the candlelit proposal. But real, life romance is fueled by something far more mundane. It's kept alive each time you let your spouse know they're valued during the grind of everyday life. It grows when a wife says, "Are we out of bleach?" And the husband says, "I don't know. Let me go get some just in case," instead of shrugging apathetically. It grows when you know your partner is having a bad day and you take 60 seconds to leave an encouraging voicemail. It grows when your partner says, "I had the worst nightmare last night," and you say, "I'm in a hurry, but tell me about it now so we can talk about it tonight," instead of, "I don't have time." In all these moments, you're making a choice. You're either turning toward your partner or turning away. And the accumulation of these choices determines the fate of your relationship. The emotional bank account. Think of your relationship as having an emotional bank account. Every time you turn toward your partner's bid for connection, you make a deposit. Every time you turn away, you make a withdrawal. Partners who characteristically turn toward each other build up substantial emotional savings. This cushion protects them when times get rough, when they face major stress or conflict. Because they've stored up goodwill, they can make allowances for each other. They can maintain a positive sense of their marriage even during hard times. But the biggest payoff isn't just the cushion. Turning toward your spouse in little ways is the key to long, lasting romance. A romantic night out really only works when a couple has kept the pilot light burning by staying in touch in small ways. Put a couple who can't agree on anything in a candlelit restaurant, and the evening will likely be a disaster of accusations and awkward silences. Put a couple who habitually turn toward each other in those same chairs, and the romance will flow naturally. Stress and connection. One of the most important daily rituals for turning toward each other is the stress, reducing conversation. Here's how it works. At the end of the workday, spend 20 to 30 minutes catching up. The cardinal rule, you talk about whatever is on your mind outside of your marriage. This is not the time to discuss conflicts between you. It's an opportunity to support each other emotionally concerning the rest of your lives. The goal is not to solve problems. Most people don't want solutions when they vent. They want empathy. They want to hear, "That sounds so frustrating," rather than, "Why don't you just..." Here are the rules for this conversation. Take turns. Each partner gets to be the complainer for about 15 minutes. Don't give unsolicited advice. Understanding must precede advice. Most of the time, your partner just wants you to listen. Show genuine interest. Make eye contact. Ask questions. Nod. Communicate understanding. "That sounds so stressful. I can see why you feel that way." Take your partner's side. Even if you think their perspective is unreasonable, be supportive. This isn't the time for moral judgment. If your wife is upset about her boss, don't say, "Well, maybe he was just having a bad day." Say, "That's so unfair." Express a "we against others" attitude. Let them know you're in this together. Express affection. Hold their hand. Put an arm around them. Say, "I love you." Validate emotions. "That makes total sense. I'd be worried too." Here's an example of what not to do. "Hank, I had another terrible meeting with Ethel today. She keeps challenging my knowledge. I hate her. I think this is another example of you overreacting. I've seen her be very constructive. Maybe you're just not being sensitive to her concerns." The woman is out to get me. That's your paranoid streak. You've got to control that. "Oh, forget it." And here's the same conversation done right. "Hank, I had another terrible meeting with Ethel today." "I can't believe that woman. She's the meanest." "What did you say?" "I told her she's just out to get me and she's not going to succeed." "She can make anyone paranoid. I'm sorry she's putting you through this. I'd like to get even with her." "So would I, but I think it's better to just ignore her." "Your boss knows what she's like." "Everyone does." "That's true. He doesn't share her opinion of me." "That's bound to backfire on her." "I hope so, or she'll give me an ulcer." "This is really stressing you out. I can understand why." See the difference? In the first conversation, Hank leaves feeling attacked and misunderstood. In the second, he feels supported and heard. His stress diminishes rather than increases. When bids are missed, what happens when a partner chronically fails to turn toward? Usually it's not out of malice, but out of mindlessness. People get distracted. They take each other for granted. Simply realizing the importance of these small moments is often enough to shift the pattern. But sometimes deeper dynamics are at play. One partner may feel the other is too needy, while that partner feels constantly rebuffed. This often reflects a fundamental difference in needs for intimacy versus independence. Marriage is a dance. There are times you feel drawn to your loved one, and times you need to pull back and replenish your autonomy. A wide spectrum of normal exists here. The solution is to talk about it. When you don't look up from your phone when I'm talking, I feel invisible and hurt. When you follow me around the house wanting to talk, I feel suffocated. Both realities are legitimate. Once you understand and acknowledge each other's perspectives, reconnecting becomes more natural. The magic 5 hours. One of the most encouraging findings from research is that couples who significantly improved their marriages devoted only an extra 5 hours a week to their relationship. Here's how they spent it. Partings, 10 minutes per week. Before saying goodbye in the morning, learn about one thing happening in your spouse's day. Reunions, 1 hour 40 minutes per week. Have a stress-reducing conversation at the end of each workday. Admiration and appreciation, 35 minutes per week. Find some way every day to communicate genuine affection and appreciation. Affection. Kiss, hold, grab, touch each other. Make sure to kiss before sleep. Lace that kiss with forgiveness and tenderness. Weekly date, 2 hours per week. Stay connected in a relaxed, low-pressure way. Ask each other questions that update your love maps. That's it. 5 hours. Less time than most people spend at the gym. And the return on investment in health, happiness, and longevity far exceeds anything a workout can offer. Key takeaway. Love lives in the small moments. Every time you turn toward your partner's bid for attention, even a comment about a boat or a missing item at the grocery store, you're depositing into an emotional bank account that will sustain your relationship through every challenge. Reflection prompt. Pay attention today to the bids your partner makes for connection. A comment, a look, a touch. Notice how often you turn toward versus turn away. What might be different if you responded positively to just one more bid each day? Chapter 8. Accepting Influence. The Power of Yielding. Chapter Summary. In happy marriages, partners allow themselves to be influenced by each other. This is especially critical for men who are often conditioned to resist. When one partner refuses to share power, the relationship becomes dangerously unstable. This chapter explores why accepting influence matters and how to practice it. Jack was about to buy a used blue Honda. The car seemed like a great deal. The seller was being transferred to London. The car had only 300 miles, and it came with a manufacturer's warranty. Jack liked the handling, the power, the state-of-the-art sound system. He was ready to close the deal. But first, he told the seller he wanted a mechanic to inspect it. Why? The seller asked. It's basically a new car. True, Jack said, but I promised my wife I wouldn't buy a car without having it checked first. The seller gave him a withering look. You let your wife tell you what to do about cars? Sure, Jack said. Don't you? Well, no, I don't. I'm divorced, the seller replied. Maybe that's why, Jack said with a chuckle. Jack isn't a pushover. He's not whipped. He's made his wife a partner in his decision-making. He respects her opinions and feelings. He understands that for his marriage to thrive, he has to share the driver's seat. Research bears this out dramatically. In long-term studies of newlywed couples, men who allow their wives to influence them have happier marriages and are far less likely to divorce. Statistically, when a man is not willing to share power with his partner, there's an 81% chance his marriage will self-destruct. This isn't about blaming men. Wives also need to treat their husbands with honor and respect. But the data show that the vast majority of wives, even in unstable marriages, already accept influence from their husbands. They may get angry, even contemptuous, but they still consider their husband's opinions and feelings when making decisions. Too often men don't return the favor. What resisting influence looks like. When a couple argues, the wife will typically express some negative emotion, anger, frustration, a complaint. In happy marriages, the husband either tones down the negativity or matches it without escalating. But 65% of men don't do either. Instead, they escalate by deploying one of the 4 horsemen. They get defensive, critical, contemptuous, or they stonewall. If the wife says, "You're not listening to me," the husband might ignore her, stonewall, get defensive. "Yes, I am." Be critical. "I don't listen because what you say never makes sense." Or be contemptuous. "Why waste my time?" Each of these responses is a refusal to accept influence. Rather than acknowledging her feelings, the husband is trying to drown her out. And this pattern, even if it happens only occasionally, puts the marriage at serious risk. Why men struggle with this? For centuries, men were expected to be in charge of their families. That sense of entitlement gets passed down in subtle ways. Even now, with more than 60% of married women working outside the home, many men still haven't adjusted to the new reality of shared power. But times have changed. As one unhappy husband put it, "I married June Cleaver and she turned into Murphy Brown. It's not fair. I didn't bargain for this." Fair or not, the only effective response to this cultural transformation is to embrace it. Men who fight against it, who react with anger and hostility, end up divorced or living in parallel marriages. Men who accept their wife's influence are happily married, yielding to win. There's a principle here that applies to everyone, regardless of gender. Often, you need to yield in order to win. When you encounter a roadblock, you can either stop, become righteously indignant and insist the obstacle move, or you can drive around it. The first approach will give you a heart attack. The second will get you home. The classic example is the toilet seat. For many women, a raised seat symbolizes male entitlement, so a man can score major points simply by putting it down. The wise husband smiles at how smart he is as he drops the lid. He's not being emasculated, he's choosing us over me. Accepting influence is both an attitude and a skill. In day-to-day life, it means working on the first three principles: knowing your partner, nurturing fondness, and turning toward them. During conflict, it means being willing to compromise. Search through your partner's request for something you can give. Even a small concession can transform the dynamic. When it's hard to yield, sometimes accepting influence on a particular issue feels impossible. This usually signals that you've hit an unsolvable problem, a perpetual issue rooted in deep personal dreams. We'll explore these fully in later chapters. For now, the key is to recognize that even when you can't agree, you can still honor your partner's perspective. One couple I worked with, Tim and Kara, constantly argued about Tim's friend Buddy. Buddy was unemployed, fought with his girlfriend, and frequently crashed on their sofa. Kara saw him as a bad influence and an invasion of their home. Tim insisted that it was his home too, and he could invite over anyone he wanted. When I asked Tim what his friendship with Buddy meant to him, a deeper story emerged. During high school, when Tim's parents were going through a bitter divorce, he'd spent countless nights on Buddy's couch. He felt it was now his responsibility to help the friend who'd helped him. Kara's demand that he abandon Buddy felt like a demand to abandon his own sense of honor. Once Kara understood this, the conflict transformed. She still didn't love Buddy on the sofa, but she admired Tim's loyalty. It was one of the things she loved about him. Tim acknowledged that Buddy could be a user. They agreed that Buddy could stay over, but less frequently. By accepting the validity of each other's perspective, they moved from gridlock to workable compromise. Practice exercise. Yield to win. Here's a practical way to develop this skill. Visualize the following scenarios as if you and your partner were the ones in conflict. No matter how negative she sounds, assume there's a reasonable request within the complaint. Identify that reasonable part, then write down what you could say to express cooperation. Example: your wife is angry that you come home from work and just want to eat dinner and watch TV, while she's been home all day and needs to escape the house. She yells, "What about me? I'll go crazy if I can't get out and have contact with other people." Reasonable request to get out of the house. You say, "I'm sorry you're going stir." Crazy. What if we have a relaxing dinner at home so I can rest, then go out for dessert? Practice with scenarios about money, housework, sex, social life, parenting. The more you practice finding the reasonable core within complaints, the more naturally you'll respond with cooperation rather than defensiveness. Key takeaway: sharing power doesn't mean giving up your identity. It means making your partner a true partner, someone whose opinions and feelings genuinely matter in the decisions that affect both of you. The strongest marriages are built on mutual influence, not domination or submission. Reflection prompt: think about a recent conflict with your partner. What was the reasonable core of their complaint? If you had to state it in your own words, what would you say? How might you have responded differently if you'd focused on that reasonable core rather than defending yourself? Book 3: The Art of Conflict and Repair. Chapter 9: Softening Startup, How to Begin a Difficult Conversation. Chapter Summary. The way a difficult conversation begins determines how it will end, 96% of the time. Harsh startups, those that begin with criticism, blame, or contempt, almost guarantee a negative outcome. A soft startup, where you complain without attacking, sets the stage for productive dialogue. This chapter teaches the art of beginning well. When researchers analyzed thousands of marital conversations, they discovered something remarkable. They could predict the outcome of a conflict discussion with 96% accuracy based on just the first 3 minutes. If a conversation began harshly, with criticism, sarcasm, or contempt, it almost inevitably ended on a negative note, no matter how many attempts to make nice happened in between. Let me show you what I mean. Here's Dara and Oliver, a young couple discussing housework. I'd like to see it resolved, but it doesn't seem like it is. I've tried making up lists, and that doesn't work. And I've tried letting you do it on your own, and nothing got done for a month. She's already moved from complaint to criticism, implying the problem is him. Oliver tries to lighten things up with a joke. Dara sits poker-faced. Oliver suggests keeping a list of chores on the refrigerator. Dara sneers, "Do you think you work really well with lists?" He mentions he needs 15 minutes to relax when he gets home. "So if I leave you alone for 15 minutes, then you think you'll be motivated to jump up and do something?" she asks. Her sarcasm is a form of contempt. She's not just complaining anymore. She's expressing disgust with him as a person. Contrast this with Justine and Michael, a happily married couple with the same issue. Here's how Justine begins. "Okay, housework." Michael gets a little defensive. "I definitely clean off the counters in the kitchen and the table whenever we do stuff." "Just you do." She validates him, a repair attempt. Michael relaxes. Justine continues gently. "I think it's just like sometimes when things are just kind of left, or the laundry just piles up." "Yeah, I haven't even been thinking about laundry. I just haven't been thinking about it at all." Justine laughs. "That's kind of cute. Who do you think's doing it? You keep having clothes to wear." They go on to have a productive, even playful conversation about who does what and how to handle it. No one gets defensive, no one attacks. They actually solve the problem. What made the difference? Justine's startup was soft. She complained about a specific situation without attacking Michael's character. She kept the conversation light. When he got a little defensive, she offered a repair, "You do," rather than escalating. The anatomy of a soft startup. A soft startup has several key components. Complain but don't blame. Instead of, "You never take out the trash. What's wrong with you?" Try, "I noticed the trash is still here. I thought we agreed you'd take it out. I'm frustrated." Make statements that start with "I" instead of "you." "I feel ignored" rather than "you're ignoring me." "I'm worried about our finances" rather than "you're spending too much." This isn't about psychobabble. It's about taking responsibility for your own experience rather than attacking. Describe what's happening without evaluating or judging. "I seem to be the only one chasing after the baby today," rather than "you never watch the baby." Be clear. Don't hint. "I'd appreciate it if you'd clean your stuff off the dining room table," rather than "this room is a mess. Your partner can't read your mind." Be polite. Add "please," and "I would appreciate it if." Treat your spouse with the same courtesy you'd offer a guest. Be appreciative. "Remember how we used to go out every Saturday night? I loved spending that time alone with you. Let's start doing that again." Don't store things up. Address issues before they build into a pressure cooker of resentment. As the Bible says, "Let not the sun go down upon your wrath," when you're the target of a harsh startup. If your partner begins harshly, you have a choice. You can escalate. Criticism for criticism, contempt for contempt, which guarantees a terrible outcome. Or you can recognize the pain behind the attack. Remember, a harsh startup is often a reaction to feeling unheard. If your partner feels known, respected, and loved by you, they're far less likely to come at you with guns blazing. So if harsh startups are common in your relationship, the best preventive measure is to work on the fundamentals. Know your partner deeply, express fondness and admiration, turn toward them consistently and accept their influence. In the moment, when a harsh startup does occur, you can try a repair attempt. "I'm feeling attacked. Can we start over? I want to hear what you're saying, but it's hard when I feel criticized. Can you say that more gently? If your partner can't soften, it may be better to take a break. I'm feeling flooded. Can we pause and come back to this in 20 minutes? Then actually come back in 20 minutes. Don't let the issue fester. Practice creating softened startups. Here are some harsh startups. Practice transforming each into a softened alternative. Harsh, you never touch me anymore. Softened, I loved it when you kissed me in the kitchen the other day. You're a natural, born kisser. Let's do that more often. Harsh, I see you dented the car again. When are you going to stop being so reckless? Softened, I saw that new dent. What happened? I'm getting worried about your driving and I want you to be safe. Can we talk about this? Harsh, you always ignore me. Softened, I've been missing you lately and getting a little lonely. You're too wimpy to ask for a raise. It would be great if you could get a raise soon. What if we talked about a plan for getting one? The softened versions don't avoid the issue. They just approach it in a way that invites cooperation rather than defensiveness. Key takeaway: the first 3 minutes of a difficult conversation set the course for the entire discussion. Begin with criticism or contempt, and you'll end in acrimony. Begin with a soft, respectful complaint, and you open the door to real resolution. Reflection prompt. Think about the last difficult conversation you initiated with your partner. How did you begin? Was it a soft startup or a harsh one? Replay the beginning in your mind and rewrite it as a softened startup. How might the conversation have gone differently? Chapter 10. Repair attempts. How to hit the brakes when things go wrong. Chapter summary. Every couple fights. What separates happy couples from miserable ones isn't whether conflict occurs, but whether they can repair the damage. Repair attempts are the secret weapon of emotionally intelligent couples. Statements or actions that prevent negativity from spiraling out of control. This chapter teaches you how to send and receive these crucial signals. I witnessed one of my favorite repair attempts in the Love Lab. Hal and Jody were discussing a chronic issue. He was a chemist whose unpredictable hours meant he often couldn't get home for dinner. Jody was frustrated because the kids refused to eat until Dad arrived, so they were all eating very late. Hal, trying to be helpful, suggested she give the kids a snack to tide them over. Jody snapped, "What do you think I've been doing all along?" Hal had just insulted his wife's intelligence by suggesting something she'd obviously been doing for months. In an unhappy marriage, this could have sparked a major fight. But Hal didn't get defensive. Instead, he gave Jody a really goofy smile. She burst out laughing and they continued their discussion. That goofy smile was a repair attempt, a deliberate action to de-escalate tension. It worked because their marriage was fundamentally sound. In a marriage where the four horsemen have taken up permanent residence, even the most articulate, sensitive repair attempt is likely to fail. Repair attempts save marriages, not just because they decrease emotional tension, but because they prevent flooding, that state where your heart races beyond 100 beats per minute and you literally can't think straight. When you're flooded, you can't hear a verbal white flag. You're in survival mode. The failure cascade. In unhappy marriages, a destructive feedback loop develops. The more contemptuous and defensive the couple becomes, the more flooding occurs, and the harder it is to hear and respond to a repair. Since the repair isn't heard, the contempt and defensiveness heighten, making flooding more pronounced, which makes it harder to hear the next repair attempt. Eventually, one partner withdraws entirely. This is why researchers can predict divorce by listening to a single conversation. The failure of repair attempts is a more accurate marker than the presence of the four horsemen alone. In fact, 84% of newlyweds who displayed the four horsemen but repaired effectively were in stable, happy marriages 6 years later. So what determines whether a repair attempt works? The quality of the friendship between husband and wife. When the emotional bank account is full, repairs are heard. When it's empty, they're ignored. A catalogue of repair attempts. Because repair attempts can be hard to recognize when you're upset, it helps to formalize them. Here's a list of scripted phrases organized by purpose. Consider copying this list and putting it on your refrigerator. It may feel awkward at first, like learning a new tennis grip, But with practice, these phrases will become natural tools for keeping discussions on track. I feel I'm getting scared. Please say that more gently. That hurt my feelings. That felt like an insult. I'm feeling blamed. Can you rephrase that? I'm starting to feel flooded. I feel criticized. Can you rephrase that? I need to calm down. Can you make things safer for me? I need things to be calmer right now. Just listen to me right now and try to understand. Please help me calm down. Can we take a break? Sorry, my reactions were too extreme. Sorry. Let me try again. I can see my part in all this. How can I make things better? Let's try that over again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Get to yes. You're starting to convince me. I agree with part of what you're saying. Let's compromise here. Let's find our common ground. I think your point of view makes sense. Stop action. Please, let's stop for a while. Let's take a break. I'm feeling flooded. Give me a moment. I'll be back. I appreciate. I know this isn't your fault. Thank you for. I understand. I love you. This is not your problem. It's our problem. Practice sending and receiving repairs. To make repair attempts part of your relationship, practice them during low-intensity conflicts. Announce your repair attempt. I'm making repair attempt number 6 under I feel. I'm feeling sad. When your partner announces a repair, your job is simply to accept it. View it as a bid to make things better, offered in good faith. Over time, you may develop your own unique repair signals. One couple I know says, clip, clop to each other if one of them introduces a horseman into the discussion. The humor diffuses the tension. Another couple has a code word, porcupine, to signal when one needs the other to soften. The point isn't the specific words. It's the intention to stop the negative spiral and reconnect. Every successful repair attempt is a deposit in the emotional bank account, making the next conflict that much easier to navigate. Key takeaway: conflict is inevitable. Damage isn't. The ability to repair, to pause, de-escalate, apologize, and reconnect is the single most important skill for keeping arguments from destroying your relationship. Reflection prompt. What repair attempts do you already use with your partner? A joke? A touch? An apology? Think of a recent conflict. Did you try to repair? Did your partner? Did it work? If not, what might a successful repair have looked like? Chapter 11. The Art of Compromise and Managing Anger. Chapter Summary. Every couple faces conflicts that can be solved and conflicts that can't. For solvable problems, compromise is the key. This chapter walks through a proven method for finding solutions both partners can accept, while managing the anger and flooding that often derail productive negotiation. Here's a hard truth. About 69% of all marital conflicts are perpetual. They'll never be fully solved. But about 31% are solvable, if you know how. The problem is, many couples handle solvable problems the same way they handle perpetual ones. By arguing endlessly, making no headway, and feeling increasingly frustrated. Solvable problems feel different. They're less gut-wrenching. They're about specific situations, not deep symbolic meanings. Rachel and Jason argue about driving. He speeds. She hates it. The conflict is situational. It happens on their morning commute and doesn't spill into other areas of their lives. They don't vilify each other. They don't accuse each other of being selfish or uncaring. The argument stays focused on the specific behavior and how to adjust it. Contrast this with Eleanor and Clan, who also argue about his driving. But for them, the conflict has become symbolic. It's really about trust, security, selfishness. When they fight about speeding, they're fighting about big issues that go to the core of their identities. They'll never fully resolve this. They can only learn to live with it. For solvable problems, the following 5-step approach works remarkably well. Step 1. Soften your startup. We covered this in detail in Chapter 9. The way you begin a conflict discussion determines how it will end. Start gently, without criticism or contempt. Step 2. Make and receive repair attempts. As discussed in Chapter 10, be ready to put on the brakes when the conversation starts going off track. Use formal repair phrases, humor, or your own signals. And when your partner offers a repair, accept it. Step 3. Soothe yourself and each other. When a conflict discussion triggers flooding, racing heart, sweating, feeling overwhelmed, continuing the conversation is pointless. Your body has activated its primitive alarm system, and your ability to process information plummets. You literally cannot have a productive discussion when flooded. The only reasonable strategy is to take a break. Say, I'm feeling flooded. Can we pause for 20 minutes? That's the minimum time your body needs to calm down. During the break, avoid thoughts of righteous indignation, I don't have to take this, or innocent victimhood, why is she always picking on me? Instead, do something soothing and distracting. Listen to music, exercise, read a magazine. A simple meditative technique helps. Sit comfortably, focus on deep regular breathing. Relax your muscles one group at a time, forehead, neck, shoulders, arms, back. Imagine the tension flowing out. Visualize a calm, peaceful place, a beach, a forest, a mountain cabin. Stay with that image for several minutes. Once you've both calmed down, you can resume the discussion, or better yet, take time to soothe each other. This might involve massage, gentle conversation, or simply sitting quietly together. Soothing each other is a form of reverse conditioning. If you frequently experience being calmed by your spouse, you'll stop seeing them as a trigger of stress and start associating them with feeling relaxed. Step 4. Compromise. Compromise is the only sustainable solution to solvable problems, but it only works after you've softened your startup, repaired your discussion, and kept calm. The core of compromise is accepting influence, being honestly open to your partner's opinions and desires, even when you don't agree with them. If you're sitting with your arms folded, shaking your head no, you're not ready to compromise. Here's a practical exercise, the circle of flexibility. On a piece of paper, draw 2 concentric circles. In the inner circle, list the aspects of the problem that you absolutely cannot give ground on, your non-negotiables. In the outer circle, list everything you can be flexible about. Try to make the outer circle as large as possible and the inner circle as small as possible. For example, a couple dissatisfied with their sex life might produce his inner circle. I want sex to be more erotic. I want fantasy play with lingerie. His outer circle. I can compromise on timing, morning or evening. I can compromise on talking during sex. Her inner circle. I want to feel like we're making love, not just having sex. I want lots of holding and stroking and foreplay. Her outer circle. I prefer night sex, but morning works too. I can compromise on talking during sex. Looking at these circles, they can see that their core desires aren't incompatible. They can create love-making sessions that incorporate his desire for erotic fantasy with her longing for intimacy and touching. For timing and talking, they can switch off or find a middle ground. The goal is to develop a common way of thinking about the issue so that you work together rather than against each other. Ask yourselves, what do we agree about? What are our common goals? How can we accomplish them together? Step 5. Be tolerant of each other's faults. You married a human being, not a fantasy. Your partner has flaws, and some of those flaws will never change. As long as you're focused on if-only thinking, if only she were neater, if only he were more ambitious, you'll be on a relentless campaign to alter your spouse, which makes compromise impossible. Compromise isn't about one person changing. It's about negotiating, finding common ground, and accommodating each other. It's about accepting that some differences are part of the package deal of being married to this particular person. Managing anger in the process. Anger is inevitable in any intimate relationship. The question isn't whether you'll feel angry, but how you'll express it. Expressing anger aggressively, yelling, name-calling, character attacks, temporarily relieves the pressure but causes lasting damage. It takes 5 positive interactions to counteract 1 negative episode, and angry outbursts create wounds that take weeks or months to heal. On the other hand, repressing anger entirely doesn't work either. Stuffed anger seeps out as depression, passive-aggressive behavior, or eventual explosion. The healthy middle path is to recognize anger as a signal, a flashing red light that says something needs attention, and to express it constructively. When you notice anger rising, physical signs include racing heart, flushed face, clenched jaw. Use it as a stop sign. Pause. Breathe. If needed, step away for 20 minutes. Then analyze the situation calmly. What was the trigger? Is there a deeper emotion underneath the anger? Hurt, fear, shame? What past wound might this be touching? What do you actually need? When you re-engage, express your feelings using I statements. When you forgot my birthday, I felt hurt and unloved. Then make a clear request. Would you please put a reminder in your phone for next year? This approach invites cooperation rather than defensiveness. It addresses the issue without attacking the person. Key takeaway: anger is a signal, not a weapon. Solvable conflicts can be resolved through softened startup, effective repair, self-soothing, flexible compromise, and tolerance, but only if you manage your emotions rather than letting them manage you. Reflection prompt: choose a solvable conflict in your relationship. Draw your own circle of flexibility. What can't you give on, and what can you be flexible about? Then invite your partner to do the same. Share and look for common ground. Chapter 12, Overcoming Gridlock, The Power of Hidden Dreams. Chapter summary: when a conflict feels impossible to resolve, when you've had the same fight 100 times with no progress, you're gridlocked. Gridlock always signals that a deep, unacknowledged dream lies beneath the surface. This chapter teaches you how to uncover those dreams and move from painful stalemate to respectful dialogue. You want children. Your partner doesn't. She's devout. You're an atheist. You crave adventure. He wants stability. These are perpetual problems. They'll never be solved, in the sense of one person converting to the other's viewpoint. But that doesn't mean you're doomed. The goal is not to resolve perpetual problems. It's to move from gridlock to dialogue, to be able to talk about the issue without hurting each other, to learn to live with it. Gridlock is a sign that you have dreams, hopes, aspirations, wishes that are part of your identity, that aren't being addressed or respected by each other. These dreams can be practical, saving a certain amount of money, or profound, longing for security, freedom, adventure, healing. Often the deepest dreams are rooted in childhood. You may want to recreate warm family memories, or you may be trying to avoid painful ones. When these dreams are hidden or disrespected, couples either have open battles or the issue goes underground and gets expressed symbolically. They think they're fighting about Sunday dinner plans, but really they're fighting about what makes each of them feel loved. Becoming dream detectives, how do you uncover the hidden dream behind a gridlocked conflict? Start by examining your own position. Don't focus on what your partner does wrong. Ask yourself, what does this issue mean to me? What would it give me if I got my way? What deep need or value is at stake? Where does this come from in my past? Here's an example of what this exploration revealed for one couple. The husband felt his wife was too neat and tidy. He was constantly losing things after she cleaned up. He saw her as controlling and inconsiderate. His hidden dream: he grew up with strict, rigid parents. Any disagreement was insubordination. He became a rebel. His dream was to have a home where he could be himself, and that meant not following rigid rules. He wanted freedom. The wife liked order and neatness. She was constantly cleaning up his messes. She saw him as inconsiderate. Her hidden dream: she grew up in a chaotic home. Nothing was predictable. Her mother sometimes forgot to pick her up from school. She had to create order for her younger siblings. To her, order meant predictability, security, peace. Once these dreams were on the table, the conflict transformed. It wasn't about mess versus neatness anymore. It was about two wounded people trying to create safety in different ways. From that understanding, compromise became possible. The process for overcoming gridlock. Step 1. Become a dream detective. On your own, write down the story behind your position on a gridlocked issue. Explain where your dream comes from and why it's so meaningful. Don't criticize or blame your partner. Just describe your own inner world. Step 2. Talk about your dreams. Take turns. One person speaks for 15 minutes while the other listens without judgment. The listener's job is to understand, not to argue. Ask supportive questions. Tell me the story of that. What does it mean to you? What do you feel about it? What do you need? Don't try to solve the problem. Don't take your partner's dream personally. Don't spend your listening time preparing rebuttals. Just hear the dream. Step 3. Soothe each other. Discussing opposing dreams is stressful. If either of you becomes flooded, take a break. Then return and comfort each other before continuing. Step 4. End the gridlock. The goal isn't to solve the problem. It will probably never go away. The goal is to declaw it, to remove the hurt so the problem stops being a source of great pain. Use the circle exercise from the previous chapter. Define your non-negotiable core areas and your areas of flexibility. Together, devise a temporary compromise to try for a couple of months, then revisit. Step 5. Say thank you. End these difficult conversations by expressing appreciation. Pick 3 things you genuinely appreciate about your spouse and tell them. The process takes time. Perpetual problems are tenacious. But you'll know you're making progress when the issue feels less loaded, when you can discuss it with humor intact, and it no longer crowds out the love and joy in your relationship. Key takeaway: when you're gridlocked, you're not fighting about the surface issue. You're fighting about a dream that matters deeply to you. The way out isn't winning the argument. It's understanding and honoring each other's deepest hopes and needs. Reflection prompt: identify one gridlocked conflict in your relationship. On your own, write the story behind your position. What does this issue really mean to you? Where does it come from? What would getting your way give you? Now, without trying to solve anything, share this story with your partner. Book 4, The Journey of Personal Liberation. Chapter 13, Reclaiming Your Authentic Self. Chapter summary: we carry into adulthood survival strategies formed in childhood, ways of hiding our perceived flaws and seeking approval from others. These strategies, while once protective, now prevent us from experiencing true intimacy and living fully. This chapter shows you how to break free from the need for external validation and learn to approve of yourself. Almost everything we do as children is shaped by a single, overwhelming question: am I safe? Am I lovable? For many of us, the answer we absorbed was, not as you are. You need to become something different. This belief that we are not okay just as we are is what psychologists call toxic shame. It's not just feeling bad about something we did. It's a deeply held conviction that we are fundamentally defective, and it drives a lifelong pattern of seeking external validation, trying to get other people to tell us we're okay because we can't tell ourselves. Consider Todd, a 30-year-old single man. I'm a chameleon, he admitted. I will become whatever I believe a person wants me to be in order to be liked. With my smart friends, I act intelligent and use a big vocabulary. Around my mother, I look like the perfect loving son. With my dad, I talk sports. Underneath it all, I'm not sure who I really am. Todd's behavior may seem extreme, but it is just an amplified version of what many of us do. We attach our worth to things outside ourselves. Our appearance, our accomplishments, our partner's approval, our children's success, and we hide anything that might expose us as less than perfect. The cover, up artists, nice guys, and people pleasers of all genders, are consummate cover-up artists. Because they don't believe they're okay as they are, they see any mistake or perceived flaw as proof of their unworthiness. They believe that if anyone sees their true self, they'll be hurt, shamed, or abandoned. So they develop intricate strategies for hiding, lying. Though they pride themselves on honesty, they're fundamentally dishonest. They tell partial truths, omit information and spin stories to avoid negative attention. Drawing on their account. They believe that if they do most things right, no one should notice the few things they do wrong. Fixing. Rather than taking responsibility, apologizing, making amends, they try to fix the situation by doing whatever it takes to make the other person stop being upset. The deer response. When confronted, they defend, explain, excuse, and rationalize, all fear-based behaviors designed to distract others from their mistakes. Turning the tables. They shift focus to the other person's flaws, shame-dumping, in hopes of slipping out of the spotlight. Building walls. They use addictions, humor, sarcasm, perfectionism, or isolation to keep people at a safe distance. The irony is that these defenses accomplish the exact opposite of what they crave. People aren't drawn to perfection. They're drawn to shared humanity, shared struggles, genuine life energy. The more you try to hide your imperfections, the more vague, lifeless, and uninteresting you become. As I often tell clients, we're all Teflon, coated, so smooth that nothing sticks to us. But that Teflon also prevents people from getting close. It's actually our rough edges, our human imperfections, that give others something to connect with. Learning to approve of yourself. Breaking free from the need for external validation requires a fundamental shift. You must learn to provide for yourself what you've been seeking from others. This doesn't happen overnight, but it happens through consistent practice. Become aware of your approval, seeking behavior. Notice when you're trying to impress someone. Notice when you're hiding something. Notice when you're saying what you think they want to hear rather than what you truly feel. Simply observing these patterns begins to loosen their grip. Take good care of yourself. When you do good things for yourself, exercise, eat well, rest, pursue interests, buy yourself something nice, you're sending a message to your unconscious that you matter. This creates cognitive dissonance, a clash between your old belief, I'm worthless, and your new actions, I'm worth caring for. One of those beliefs has to give. Keep treating yourself well, and the old belief will crumble. Start small. Buy yourself new socks. Schedule a massage. Take a walk during lunch. Go on a weekend trip alone. Each act of self-care is a brick in the new foundation you're building. Spend time alone. Extended solitude lets you discover who you are without the pressure to perform for anyone. On trips alone, you can eat when you want, sleep when you want, go where you want. You'll face your deepest fear, loneliness, and discover it doesn't kill you. You'll also learn that you don't have to tolerate intolerable situations or manipulate people to get your needs met. Reveal yourself to safe people. You can't heal shame in isolation. You need people who will see you as you really are, flaws, mistakes, dark secrets and all, and still accept you. Start with a therapist, a support group, or a trusted friend. Little by little, reveal the things you've been hiding. Each time you do and are met with acceptance rather than rejection, the shame loses its power. I watched this happen with Reed, a recovering alcoholic in a men's group. One night he came in looking terrified. He'd been on a binge, relapsed after months of sobriety, and had visited peep shows. He was convinced the group would judge him, reject him. Instead, they gathered around him. "We don't think you're bad," they said. "We see that you're hurting. We respect you for coming here and telling us." Reed wept. He had just experienced something he'd never had as a child, being seen at his worst and still loved. That's the power of safe people. That's how toxic shame dies, the shift. As you practice these steps, something remarkable happens. You begin to realize truths that your childhood never taught you. You are not bad. You don't have to earn love by performing. Your mistakes don't define you. People can love you just as you are. You are the only person whose approval you really need. And here's the payoff. When you stop seeking approval and start being authentic, people are drawn to you. Confidence and self-acceptance are magnetic. The chameleon fades and a real person emerges. Someone with substance and character. Someone who can actually connect. Key takeaway. You learn to seek approval because as a child you believed your survival depended on it. As an adult, you can unlearn this. The path to authentic connection runs through self-acceptance, learning to give yourself what you've been desperately seeking from others. Reflection prompt. What's one thing about yourself that you've been hiding from most people? What would it take for you to share it with one safe person? What are you afraid would happen? What might actually happen? Chapter 14. Making your needs a priority. Chapter summary. Many of us were taught that having needs is selfish, that we should put others first, that if we just give enough, our own needs will somehow get met. This chapter challenges that conditioning and shows you how to take responsibility for your own well-being, and why doing so actually improves your relationships. Lars was a successful executive who came to therapy because he was depressed, anxious, and having fantasies of chucking it all and disappearing. When I asked what he did for himself, he gave me a puzzled look. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Things you do purely for your own pleasure and well-being." After a long pause, "Not much, I guess." When I suggested he needed to make his needs a priority, Lars became visibly anxious. "That seems like that would make me selfish and self-centered. That would make me too much like my old man. All he ever thought about was himself, and the rest of us suffered." Lars's reaction is common. Many of us were conditioned to believe that having needs is bad, that asking for what we want is selfish, that the virtuous path is to be low maintenance and focus on serving others. But here's the truth. Having needs is part of being human. Mature people make meeting their own needs a priority, and paradoxically, taking responsibility for your own well-being makes you less needy, less resentful, and more genuinely generous. The hidden agenda of giving nice guys and people pleasers don't give freely. They give with unspoken strings attached. This is what I call a covert contract. The unspoken agreement goes like this. 1. I will do this, fill in the blank, for you. 2. So that you will do this, fill in the blank, for me. 3. We will both pretend we have no awareness of this contract. For example, I will clean the kitchen and take care of the kids and never complain, so that you will be sexually available whenever I want, and we'll both act like this arrangement just happened naturally. Covert contracts don't work. The other person usually has no idea they're party to an agreement. They feel manipulated but can't quite put their finger on why. And the giver feels perpetually cheated. After all I do for you, this is what I get. This pattern inevitably leads to the victim triangle. Giving, then feeling resentful when the return doesn't come, then exploding in some not-so-nice way, rage, passive aggression, withdrawal, then feeling guilty and starting the cycle over with renewed caretaking. Learning to receive. Here's the most counterintuitive part. Nice guys and people pleasers are often terrible receivers. Because getting their needs met contradicts their childhood paradigm, I'm not supposed to have needs, they unconsciously sabotage it. They pick partners who are unavailable or have difficulty giving. They focus on the other person's needs before their own can be addressed. They start fights or create distance when someone actually tries to give to them. All of this ensures they never have to experience the terror of being truly seen, truly vulnerable, truly receiving. The solution is to practice receiving. Start small. When someone offers a compliment, say thank you instead of deflecting. When your partner offers to do something for you, let them. When you need help, ask for it directly rather than hinting or manipulating, putting yourself first. For a week, try an experiment. Put yourself first. Tell the people around you what you're doing so they're not confused. Then pay attention to your own needs and wants and prioritize them. Lars, the anxious executive, decided to make time every day for the gym, something he'd loved before children but had given up. His wife was initially resistant. He felt guilty, but he persisted. By the end of the week, things had shifted. His wife actually asked how his workout went. He felt more energized and optimistic. He started sleeping better. And his wife, inspired by his example, decided to start her own exercise program. Shane, another client, was constantly giving gifts, planning surprises, and doing things for his girlfriend, all with the hope of securing her love. His experiment was different. Every time he felt the urge to do something for her, he did something for himself instead. It created tremendous anxiety. But at the end of the week, his girlfriend reported feeling less smothered and actually looked forward to spending time with him. She even initiated sex, something she hadn't done in months. When you make your needs a priority, you become less dependent, less needy, less fearful. You stop being a victim. You stop keeping score. You give freely, without resentment, because you're already full. And that fullness makes you genuinely attractive, not in a manipulative way, but in the way of someone who radiates self-respect and vitality. Key takeaway: meeting your own needs isn't selfish. It's the foundation of genuine generosity. When your cup is full, you can give to others freely, without secret contracts or hidden resentment. Reflection prompt: what's one need you've been neglecting? What's one small thing you could do for yourself today, purely for your own pleasure or well-being? Do it. Notice how it feels. Chapter 15, Reclaiming Your Power and Your Boundaries. Chapter summary. Personal power isn't about dominating others. It's about the quiet confidence that you can handle whatever life throws at you. This chapter explores how to stop feeling like a victim, set healthy boundaries, express your feelings directly, and live with integrity. All essential skills for thriving relationships. One Saturday morning, I was in a heated argument with my wife Elizabeth. She felt helpless to get me to see my own denial. I felt unjustly persecuted. Finally, in frustration, she shouted, "You're nothing but a wimp." She left the room. I retreated to the bathroom, eyes stinging. A few minutes later, she knocked on the door. "I'm sorry for calling you a wimp. That wasn't fair." I wiped my eyes. "Actually," I said, "it was the most accurate thing you said all morning." Nice guys tend to be wimpy victims. That's not an insult. It's an accurate description of what happens when you sacrifice your personal power in pursuit of approval. You become passive, indirect, fearful. You feel like life is happening to you rather than through you. You blame others for your unhappiness. Reclaiming personal power doesn't mean becoming aggressive or domineering. It means developing the quiet inner confidence that no matter what happens, you can handle it. It's not the absence of fear. It's feeling fear and moving forward anyway. Surrender to what is the first step in reclaiming power is paradoxically surrender. Not giving up, but letting go of the illusion that you can control everything. Life is inherently chaotic and unpredictable. Trying to make it smooth and problem-free is an exercise in futility that leaves you perpetually frustrated. Surrender means accepting reality as it is rather than fighting against it. It means asking, what can I learn from this situation, rather than, why is this happening to me? Gil, a client in his 50s, was constantly trying to fix his girlfriend Barb, her depression, her anger, her lack of interest in sex. He walked on eggshells, terrified of upsetting her. After months of therapy, he finally surrendered. He accepted that he couldn't change her. He focused on himself instead. Ironically, their relationship improved dramatically. By letting go of control, he allowed space for genuine connection. A year later, they got married. Dwell in reality. Nice guys often create belief systems about people and situations that aren't based in reality, then act as though these beliefs are true. Les, a client, had his wife on a pedestal despite the fact that she'd gained 60 pounds, refused to cook, was depressed, treated him with contempt, and raged at him without provocation. She's the woman of my dreams, he insisted. Facing reality required Les to see his wife accurately, not as the fantasy he needed her to be, but as the wounded, sometimes cruel person she actually was. That truth was painful, but it empowered him to make hard decisions. He eventually moved out and filed for divorce. Dwelling in reality allows you to make choices based on what's actually true, not what you wish were true. Express your feelings. Many of us learned to clamp a lid on our emotions. We believed that feelings were dangerous, that expressing them would drive people away or invite attack. But repressed feelings don't disappear. They leak out as depression, anxiety, passive aggression, or sudden explosions. Learning to express feelings directly is liberating. Start by using I statements. I feel angry, rather than you're making me mad. I'm feeling hurt, rather than you're being mean. Take responsibility for your own emotional experience, rather than blaming someone else for it. And here's a truth that surprises many people. Expressing feelings clearly and directly, even anger, can actually make others feel safer. One day I expressed my frustration to Elizabeth with an intensity that surprised us both. I told her I wasn't going to let her push me away. Later, she told me that my direct expression of feeling actually made her feel more secure. She knew where I stood, and she knew I wasn't going to abandon her. Face your fears. Fear is the common denominator underlying almost every nice guy behavior. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict, fear of failure, fear of being seen. These fears aren't based on present reality. They're memory fears, cellular-level recordings of every seemingly life-threatening experience from childhood. The only way to overcome memory fear is to face present-day fears. Every time you confront something that scares you, asking for a raise, ending a toxic relationship, speaking your truth, you create a new neural pathway that says, I can handle this. Over time, the world seems less threatening. And you feel more confident. Nolan, a client paralyzed by the decision of whether to divorce, kept saying he was confused. I told him he wasn't confused. He was afraid. He was afraid that whatever choice he made would lead to disaster, and he wouldn't be able to cope. Together we made a list of his fears. Next to each we wrote a simple truth. No matter what happens, I will handle it. That mantra gave him the courage to act. Set boundaries. Boundaries are essential for survival. Without them, you tolerate intolerable behavior and teach others that they can treat you however they want. I demonstrate boundaries by laying a shoestring on the ground. I tell someone to stop me when I cross their line and start pushing them backward. Many people let me push them several steps before they say anything. Some let me push them all the way to the wall. Setting boundaries means deciding what you will and won't accept and communicating that clearly. It's not about controlling others, it's about taking responsibility for your own well-being. When you stop tolerating intolerable behavior, You give the relationship a chance to change. You also communicate that you value yourself, which paradoxically makes others value you more. Jake, a young husband, tolerated his wife Keisha's drinking, her flirtation with other men, and her demeaning comments in public. When he finally set firm boundaries, no more drinking, no more disrespect, or the marriage was over, she initially stormed out. But 3 days later, she came back and said she respected him for the first time. She entered treatment, and their marriage began to heal. Boundary setting doesn't always produce such positive results. Sometimes the other person can't or won't change. But either way, you've reclaimed your power. You're no longer a victim of someone else's behavior. Live with integrity. Integrity is simple. Decide what feels right to you, then do it. The alternative is the committee approach, trying to guess what everyone else would think is right and acting accordingly. That path leads to confusion, powerlessness, and dishonesty. Living with integrity means telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It means keeping your word. It means aligning your actions with your values. Every time you do this, you strengthen your sense of self. Every time you fail to, you weaken it. The path to reclaiming your power isn't about becoming harder or more aggressive. It's about becoming more fully yourself, authentic, integrated, and unafraid. It's about embracing life as an adventure rather than trying to control it into submission. Key takeaway: personal power isn't about dominating others. It's about the quiet confidence that comes from living authentically, setting boundaries, facing fears, and taking full responsibility for your own life and happiness. Reflection prompt: where in your life are you tolerating something you know you shouldn't tolerate? What boundary do you need to set? What's one small step you could take today toward reclaiming your power in that situation? Book 5. Deepening Intimacy and Building Shared Meaning. Chapter 16. Communication that Heals, Active Listening and Empathy. Chapter Summary. Communication isn't just about expressing yourself clearly. It's about learning to truly hear your partner, to mirror their words, validate their experience, and empathize with their feelings. This chapter teaches a 3-step dialogue process that transforms conflicts into opportunities for deeper connection. Most couples don't actually listen to each other during arguments. While their partner is speaking, they're busy preparing their rebuttal, scanning for inaccuracies, or building their defense. The result is 2 monologues happening in parallel, neither person feeling heard or understood. There's a better way. A 3-step dialogue process that, when practiced regularly, revolutionizes communication. Step 1. Mirroring. Mirroring means reflecting back exactly what you heard your partner say, without interpretation, judgment, or rebuttal. It sounds like this. Partner A: I felt really hurt when you didn't call to say you'd be late. I was worried and started imagining all sorts of terrible things. Partner B: so what I'm hearing is that when I didn't call, you felt hurt and worried, and your mind started going to scary places. Did I get that right? Yes, exactly. Partner B: is there more about that? This last question, is there more about that, is crucial. It gives the speaker permission to go deeper, to fully express what they're feeling, rather than stopping at the surface. Most of us aren't used to being invited to say more. We're used to being cut off, argued with, or fixed. The receiver continues mirroring and asking, is there more, until the sender feels completely heard. Then the receiver summarizes everything. Let me see if I got all of that. You felt hurt when I didn't call because it brought up old fears about being abandoned. You were also angry because we'd agreed to check in. And underneath all of that, you were scared something bad had happened to me. Did I get it all? When the sender confirms that they've been fully heard, something shifts. The tension eases. They no longer need to keep making their point because their point has been received. Step 2. Validation. Validation goes beyond mirroring. It means communicating that your partner's perspective makes sense to you, even if you don't agree with it. It's saying, given your experiences, your feelings, your way of seeing the world, what you're saying makes perfect sense. This is not about agreeing. You can validate someone's experience while holding a completely different view. What you're validating is that their reality is real to them, that they're not crazy, not overreacting, not wrong for feeling what they feel. For many people, validation is even more powerful than mirroring. One woman, after years of feeling dismissed by her husband, broke down in tears when he finally said, "When I see it from your point of view, you make sense. I just see things differently." She'd been waiting her whole life to hear that she wasn't crazy. Step 3. Empathy. Empathy is the deepest level, stepping into your partner's emotional world and feeling with them. It's saying, given what you've shared, I can imagine you must feel really sad, or I can see why you'd be angry about that. Empathy doesn't require you to have the same reaction. You don't need to understand why something is painful, you just need to understand that it is painful for your partner. Empathy says, I'm with you in this feeling. You're not alone. When couples master this 3-step process, mirroring, validation, empathy, their conflicts transform. They stop being battles to win and become opportunities to understand each other more deeply. The content of the argument may not change, but the emotional climate shifts from adversarial to collaborative. Yes, it feels awkward at first. When you first try this structured dialogue, it will feel unnatural, cumbersome, even phony. That's okay. Like any new skill, it takes practice. The formality is intentional. It prevents you from slipping back into old patterns of defensiveness, criticism, and interruption. Over time, you'll internalize the process. You won't need to use the formal structure for every conversation. But when discussions get heated, or when you realize you're not really hearing each other, you can always return to these basic steps. The goal isn't just better communication, it's deeper connection. When you really listen, when you mirror, validate, and empathize, you're not just exchanging information. You're creating a space where both of you feel safe, seen, and loved. Key takeaway. The most powerful communication skill isn't expressing yourself more clearly, it's learning to truly hear your partner. Mirroring, validation, and empathy transform conflicts from battles into bridges. Reflection prompt. Next time your partner shares something important, resist the urge to respond, fix, or argue. Instead, mirror back what you heard. So what I'm hearing is, then ask, is there more? Notice how the conversation changes. Chapter 17, Creating Shared Meaning, Rituals, Roles, and Purpose. Chapter summary. Thriving marriages aren't just about managing conflict. They're about building a shared culture, rituals of connection, meaningful roles, common goals, and symbols that represent your life together. This chapter explores how to create a sense of we-ness that deepens commitment and enriches daily life. A marriage can be stable and peaceful, yet still feel empty. You can manage conflict effectively, communicate well, and maintain fondness and admiration, and still sense something missing. That something is shared meaning. Marriage isn't just about raising kids, splitting chores, and making love. It can have a spiritual dimension, an inner life together, a culture rich with symbols and rituals, a sense of shared purpose. When couples create this deeper layer, conflict becomes less intense, gridlock loosens, and the relationship becomes not just something you maintain, but something that nourishes you. Your rituals of connection. Rituals are the regular, intentional practices that give texture and meaning to your life together. They're different from routines. A routine is we eat dinner at 6:30. A ritual is we light candles, put on music, and share one thing we appreciated about the day before we eat. Rituals create safety, predictability, and connection. They're the emotional anchors that hold a family steady through chaos. They can be daily, morning coffee together before the kids wake up, weekly, Sunday brunch, Saturday morning bike rides, or annual, a particular way of celebrating birthdays, a yearly photo in the same spot. What rituals did you grow up with that you want to continue? What rituals did you lack that you want to create? What new rituals can you design together that reflect your unique identity as a couple? Some couples get creative. A weekly holiday they celebrate together, special request jars filled with loving actions, a ritual for making up after arguments that includes touch, apologies, and words of affirmation. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that the ritual holds meaning and that you're both fully present for it. Your roles and goals. Our sense of place in the world is built on the roles we play. Spouse. Conflict often arises when partners have different expectations about these roles. You might assume a father should be the primary breadwinner, while your partner envisions a more egalitarian arrangement. You might see yourself primarily as a parent, while your partner sees that as just one part of your identity. The more you can talk honestly about these expectations, the more aligned you'll become. Explore questions like, what does being a husband or wife mean to you? How did your parents model this role? What do you want to do differently? What are your deepest goals for your life, for your partnership, for your children? Your shared symbols. Every family has symbols, objects, stories, traditions that represent something larger. A dining room table that represents stability and gathering. A family story about great-grandparents that embodies loyalty. A particular piece of jewelry, a photograph, a favorite vacation spot. These symbols are the physical manifestation of your shared meaning. They remind you every day of who you are together and what you value. Talk together about the symbols in your life. What objects hold special significance? What family stories do you want to pass on? What does your home represent to you? Creating your family culture. When couples build this deeper layer of meaning, their marriage becomes more than the sum of its parts. They're not just two individuals sharing a life, they're the co-creators of a unique microculture, a world that exists nowhere else. This doesn't mean you agree on everything. Different dreams, different values, different spiritual paths can coexist as long as they're honored. The key is openness. Creating a marriage where each person's deepest convictions can be shared without fear of judgment. Where differences are respected rather than attacked. As you build this shared meaning, you'll find that the day-to-day irritations lose their power. What matters isn't who did the dishes, but the story you're telling together, the legacy you're building, the love you're creating. Key takeaway: a marriage that lasts isn't just about avoiding divorce. It's about building something meaningful together. A shared culture, a common purpose, a love that becomes a legacy. Reflection prompt. What rituals already exist in your relationship? What new ritual could you create together that would deepen your sense of connection? What does home mean to each of you? Chapter 18, The Wholehearted Life, Integrating Everything. Chapter Summary. We've covered a lot of ground. The unconscious roots of attraction, the foundations of friendship, the art of conflict and repair, the journey of personal liberation, and the creation of shared meaning. This final chapter weaves it all together into a vision of what's possible when two people commit to conscious love. We began this journey with a simple observation. Most relationships follow a predictable arc. They start with intoxication, descend into power struggle, and either end in divorce or settle into a joyless parallel existence. But there's another path, the path of the awakened heart. On this path, you stop asking, "What's wrong with my partner?" and start asking, "What is this relationship trying to teach me?" You stop trying to change the other person and start changing yourself, not to please them, but to become more fully who you were meant to be. You learn that your choice of partner wasn't random. Your unconscious mind, in its eternal quest for healing, selected someone whose wounds fit perfectly with yours. And the very conflicts that threaten to tear you apart are actually invitations to grow, to heal those old wounds, to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. You discover that lasting love isn't built on grand gestures or perfect compatibility. It's built on thousands of small choices. Turning toward your partner when they reach for you, expressing appreciation even when you're tired, softening your startup when you're angry, listening deeply when you'd rather defend yourself. You build the friendship that is the foundation of all enduring love. You maintain detailed love maps of each other's inner worlds. You actively cultivate fondness and admiration, deliberately noticing and naming what you appreciate. You turn toward each other in the mundane moments, the comment about the boat, the missing bleach, the nightmare. You learn to manage conflict without destroying connection. You soften your startups, make and receive repair attempts, soothe yourself and each other when flooded, compromise on solvable problems, and honor the hidden dreams beneath perpetual ones. You recognize that anger is a signal, not a weapon, and you express it in ways that invite cooperation rather than retaliation. You do your own inner work. You stop seeking approval from others and learn to approve of yourself. You make your needs a priority, not out of selfishness, but because a full cup allows genuine generosity. You reclaim your personal power, not by dominating others, but by setting boundaries, facing fears, expressing feelings, and living with integrity. If you're a man, you reconnect with your masculine energy and the community of other men, breaking the monogamous bond to maternal approval and becoming a fully integrated male. You build shared meaning. You create rituals of connection, clarify your roles and goals, cherish your symbols, and tell the story of your relationship in a way that honors both the struggles and the joys. And through all of this, you don't become perfect. You become conscious. You become present. You become someone who can love deeply because you've done the work of becoming whole. The journey of the awakened heart isn't a destination you reach. It's a practice you live, every day, in every interaction. Some days you'll fail. You'll revert to old patterns. You'll criticize when you meant to soften, stonewall when you meant to engage, seek approval when you know your worth doesn't depend on it. That's okay. The practice isn't about perfection. It's about returning, again and again, to the intention to love consciously. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you do this work, the more you discover that your partner was never the obstacle to your happiness. They were always the doorway. The very struggles that seemed designed to make you miserable were actually pointing toward the exact places where you needed to heal and grow. In the end, getting the love you want isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person. It's about waking up to the truth of who you are. Perfectly imperfect, fundamentally worthy, capable of profound love, and bringing that awakened self fully into your most important relationship. The awakened heart isn't a gift someone gives you. It's a gift you give yourself and through yourself to everyone you love. Key takeaway: conscious love isn't a feeling, it's a practice. It's the daily commitment to show up, be present, do the work, and keep choosing connection over protection. The reward isn't just a better relationship, it's a more whole, authentic, and fully alive you. Final reflection prompt. As you close this book, what's the single most important insight you're taking with you? What one change do you want to make in your relationship starting today? Write it down, share it with your partner, and then take one small step in that direction. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, but now. The journey of the awakened heart begins with a single conscious choice. Make it now. End of book.